Welcome again to another edition of The Lightest and Best, where we look at the lightest and best offerings of a variety of knife manufacturers. And today we're looking at the lightest and best of Strider knives. It is the SJ75 Mini, also nicknamed the Baby Huey. Strider Knives is based out of Escondido, California, and founded by Mick Strider. The Baby Huey, I am not quite sure why it's nicknamed the Baby Huey. Is it because of Bell Helicopter? They made a line of helicopters called the Huey for mostly military applications, and it looks like a small helicopter. I don't know. There was also a soul singer named Baby Huey, and there was a cartoon character of a duck named Baby Huey. So if any of you have insight into why the nickname was given Baby Huey, please just write it in the comments section. I'd be interested to find out. The SJ75 Mini is a stylistic departure for Strider. The SMF, SNG, and PT are all different size models of the same thing, and I have a PT here. It's the concealed carry version. But as you can tell, the difference, on the PT you have a drop point style blade, and with the Baby Huey you have a leaf-shaped blade. With the PT and the SMF and SNG, you have basically a triangular shaped handle that's very broad at the base. This handle is more linear and then is canted forward about 15 or 20 degrees once you reach the forward part of the handle. The specifications of the blade are: the blade length is 2.87 inches, a little less than 3 inches, although it's very wide. The handle length is 4 1/4 inches, which gives the total knife a length of 7 1/8 inch. The weight is 3.8 ounces. I have some other knives for comparison. As you've already seen, the little brother to the SJ75 Mini, which is the PTCC, here is a pair of 3 that is maybe a little smaller, maybe a little bigger. There is a Shirogorov Neon, a little smaller. Here is a Benchmade Osborne 940, which is a little longer. We have a Hinder XM18 3-inch blade. The blade is a little longer and the handle is a little shorter. And then last but not least, the Lion Steel, which is a little smaller knife than this one. The blade of the Baby Huey is made of S35 VN steel, which is a higher grade steel. Really like it. It has a leaf-shaped blade with a high hollow grind. Why the leaf shape? Spyderco does this because it gives easy access to the thumb hole. I'll show you the pair of 3 here. Whenever you have it closed, the thumb hole, because it is really a wide blade, is easy to access. Spyderco doesn't make all of their blades with wide blades. For example, the Southern has a more narrow blade and still has a thumb hole, but they had to cut a recess out in the handle, unlike the pair of 3, in order to access the thumb hole. The Baby Huey, because of its wide leaf-shaped blade, has easy access to its thumb hole, or thumb oval, should I say. The other thing that I want to point out about the shape of the blade is that it has a style of blade that is more narrow, the grind, at the base, and then it gets broader as you get toward the tip. Other manufacturers have done something stylistically similar. For example, Hinder did this with their blade. It's narrower at the base, and the grind goes up broader toward the tip. Hinder has named their style of blade the slicer grind, but it's the same idea. And I don't know if it makes you slice anything better, but the idea is that at the base of the blade, since you're using the same grinding wheel to make this concave grind, hollow grind, you'll have a wider, more obtuse angle at the base and a thinner, more acute angle at the tip. There's no jimping on the thumb ramp, but you really don't need it. And if you take the knife like this and you put your thumb in there, your thumb just fits perfectly, as if Mick Strider snuck up into our bedrooms and measured the curvature of our thumb just to fit it perfectly like that. The spine has this beautiful file work, and it may not actually be file work. It's too perfect. It may be done by a CNC machine. I guess only Mick would know that. And the file work continues down the spine so that it has a similar aesthetic theme throughout the course of the knife. The file work is nice if you want to do some forward work. You get a little bit of grip with your index finger. The method of deployment is with the thumb hole, and it deploys very nicely. The handle is made of G10 and titanium. The G10 is interesting because the handle, I don't know if you can appreciate this, is a little bit thicker toward the blade side and a little bit thinner on the tail side. And as a result, you can see the layering as you go down toward the thin side. It looks like it's a wood grain layering. The G10 is available in black, brown, or green. I have the green here in this example. The titanium on the clip side has radius milling, which is smooth and yet provides texture. And it's reminiscent of the radius milling on the TRE. Can you tell the similarities? I really like that finish on titanium. The pivot runs on phosphabron washers, and the pivot is oversized. The pivot has a recessed pivot bolt which allows you to adjust it with a large flathead screwdriver or just a coin. Here I have a dime, and you can see it fits in there very nicely, and I can turn that pivot. I want to contrast this with the Strider pivot. Both of them have large pivots, but Strider has a bolt sticking up through the middle of theirs, so in order to turn theirs, you have to have their proprietary pivot tool, or you have to get a Dremel tool after a copper penny and cut it out so that it'll fit like that, or use a spanner bit. The Strider has a much simpler design, and you can just use a flathead screwdriver, or you can use a coin. I love that about it. I love the simplicity. The lock bar is very smooth. It's milled out on the inside, both on the G10 side and on the titanium side, to better be able to get your thumb in there and disengage the lock bar. There are two approaches to this. Some knife makers make a cutout. I'll give you an example here. The Southard. You have the face side is cut out so you can access the lock bar, and you can access it very nicely. This maker, the heights of the handles scales on both the show scale and the titanium are equal in height, but they have a recess in there so that you can wedge your thumb in there. It works very well. The lock bar has no internal or external over travel stop on it, but it really doesn't need it. The pocket clip is a surface mounted spring clip secured by one screw. The usual way knife makers do is have one point of attachment to clip. They mill a recess in the titanium. However, with this one, they have a hole and they have an extension tab that fits into the hole that prevents lateral rotation of the clip, so it can still be affixed with only one screw. It's a one-position pocket clip, right hand, tip-up carry only. Sorry to those 10% of the population that are left-handed, so all of our left-handed presidents, for example, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama, are all left-handers. They're all going to have a problem with this knife. The ergonomics are very good on this knife. It's different in that it has, its finger choil is for 2 fingers. Most knives, I'm going to give you an example of the Hinderer, where you have a 1-finger finger choil and then your other 3 follow. And with the Strider PT, 1-finger finger choil and then 3 fingers follow. This is a departure because its front choil is a 2-finger finger choil and then the other 2 fingers follow. It's a very nice design. It feels very comfortable. I've already talked about how beautiful the thumb ramp is and how exactly it matches the curvature of your thumb. And another thing I like is that the handle is canted forward. so that when you're in a position to cut, it's ergonomically superior. You don't have to cock your wrist forward in order to cut well on a surface. The knife is cocked forward and canted forward. So, what are my overall impressions of the Strider SJ75 Baby Huey knife? Are there opportunities for improvement? Certainly. The inside cutout of the lock bar, I don't know if you can tell it on the titanium, but it comes to a very sharp point. And whenever you put your thumb in there to move it away, it hurts you a little bit. If you do it a lot, you come away with a sore thumb. They could have chamfered it and rounded a little bit there as well as on the G10 side. It would have made it more comfortable. What do I like about the blade? A whole lot. I love the simplicity. I love that there are only two attachment points for the handle. You have your pivot and your standoff. The clip has only one point of attachment and it's integrated into the one standoff. As I've mentioned before, it has the hole with the tab for securing it so it doesn't have any lateral rotation. Love the simplicity. The pivot is oversized and overbuilt, and you no longer need to use a Strider pivot tool to take the knife apart. I love that design element. The Strider has their lock geometry perfected with this new lock geometry. The relief cut is placed far back on the handle, so whenever the lock bar moves, the angle doesn't change as much. And the angle of the lock bar is perfectly fit and matched with the angle of the blade tang. And this is a new concept for Strider. They had problems with their PT. For example, I have a PT Performance, and I'll show you the lock geometry here. The lock bar, the angle is pretty much straight across. I don't know if you can appreciate that. But on the tang, it's angled, so whenever the lock bar engages the tang, it engages it only at one point, and as a result, it's got a lot of lock stick and it doesn't have as secure. Here, I can't even move that there. I have to, can you hear that lock stick? If you flip this open really hard, you can't get it open unless you use a screwdriver or your other hand. It has so much lock stick. And with the SJ75 Mini, you have no lock stick whatsoever. They've improved, they've gotten better and wiser on their lock geometry as they've advanced. Strider's knives has. The file work that begins on the outside of the blade on both sides and continues on to the handle gives the knife a wonderful unifying aesthetic, and I really like it. Makes it beautiful and functional. So my overall impression of the Strider SJ75 Mini, I really like it, and I think you will too. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the knife.